Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our third installment of the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund Coaches Takeout Talks. Once again, my name is Isaac Camelli, and tonight I will be serving as the MC for our Q&A session with Chrissy Buck Ziegler, head coach of the CSU Bakersfield softball team. Our entire Roadrunner family is so appreciative of the generous restaurants that have partnered with us for these takeout talks. We've already raised a lot of money so far, and we're looking forward to keep on raising that total as we're excited to watch the donation grow to the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund. We owe a big thank you to tonight's partner, Sorella Italian Restaurant, for their unselfish support of CSUB athletics, as they have agreed to donate a portion of their sales today for scholarships for our scholar athletes. If you haven't picked up food from Sorella's recently, they have a great food and several great options for group and family packs on their takeout menu. They have a wide variety of options to feed either 6 or 10 people for as little as $9.95 a person. Visit their website, sorellarestaurant.com, for more information. Once again, thank you so much to Sorella's for helping us grow the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund. If you are interested in helping our student athletes, please visit gorunners.com/give for more information. Now, before we get any further into tonight's Q&A, the staff and administration of CSUB Athletics cannot let the recent societal issues and the ongoing racial injustice our country is experiencing go unmentioned. Earlier this week, our very own Director of Athletics, Dr. Kenneth Ziggy Siegfried, issued a statement regarding the travesty that occurred, and he would like to share some of his thoughts with all of you tonight. Ziggy, welcome in.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac. And like Isaac mentioned, I wanted to say a few words on behalf of the athletics department as it pertains to the current happenings in our country with the racial injustices and violence against African Americans. I can tell you I'm heartbroken. We are heartbroken about the killings of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and the many others who have suffered and died. And I know most people on this call probably already know this, but I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And I mention that because from the time I was a little boy, I witnessed racism firsthand on many occasions. And I've always stood against it. But I want to do more. And I believe I have the opportunity to do more. But for tonight, I just want you all to know that our commitment and my commitment in the athletics department is to focus on change through actions. And I've already seen signs of a lot of progress. And, at another time I can share more about that. But we had an unbelievable athletics departmental meeting yesterday. But I'm going to end with this. Like Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I believe that is what we are doing and will continue to do at CSUB. So thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for opening your heart up for us, Ziggy. We appreciate your candid leadership and your commitment to bringing our community, our state, and our country together. Tonight, we're also welcomed by a special guest in the Zoom chat, CSU Bakersfield's president, Dr. Lynette Zalesny. Welcome back for another Coaches Takeout Talk, Dr. Zalesny. Would you like to say a few words as well?
Well, thank you, Isaac. I would. I'm so very proud of our own Dr. Ziggy Siegfried and the entire leadership at CSUB. And I, in particular, want to share what a highlight it is for my day to be with you. And I want to also share how proud I am of our coaches and your leadership and really your moral courage at this time to support our scholar athletes. And I am so delighted to be with all of you. And again, we have challenging times ahead, my friends, but we will stay strong together and we will stay resilient as runners. And we are here to stand up with one another and to do the right thing. So I want to thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm so excited to hear from Chrissy. And I hope all of you are safe and well and that your families are strong. Thank you so much.
As always, Dr. Zalesny, CSUB as a whole and CSUB Athletics especially, we appreciate everything you have done to help guide our university through these particularly tough times. Thank you again. So tonight we are excited to be back in your homes for another Coaches Takeout Talk. If you missed last week's chat with our head baseball coach, Jeremy Beard, It's available now on the CSB Athletics YouTube page. So go check it out after we're done here with Coach Buck. Tonight, we are moving from one diamond to the other as we'll be chatting with Chrissy Buck Ziegler, head coach of the CSB softball team. But before we do that, let me go over two quick pieces of housekeeping. First off, after we talked with Coach Buck for a little while, we will then move into our Q&A session where our viewers will be able to ask questions. Start thinking of a question you might want to ask now, and when you think of it, send it to me, Isaac Camelli, in the Zoom chat messaging system. To do that, locate and click on the chat icon, make sure the to section says my name, type in your question, and hit send. When we get to that portion of our evening, I'll go through the viewer questions and present them to Coach myself. The last bit of advice I have is just one recommendation. If you have your Zoom meeting in the gallery view, you might want to switch over to speaker view. We recommend this as the best view because it gives you a better viewing experience, but feel free to roam around the gallery as much as you want. Okay, enough logistics talk. It's time to get to the main event. Tonight, we'll be hearing from CSUB's head softball coach, Chrissy Buck Ziegler. Wrapping up her 9th season at the helm, Coach Buck has guided the Roadrunners to a WAC Pitcher of the Year award, 29 all-conference odds, and 56 academic all-conference honors. She also coached CSUB to a 2016 WAC tournament title and a trip to the NCAA regionals, where the Runners battle against the #1 overall team in the country and her alma mater, UCLA, while the Runners made their first postseason experience at the NCAA Division I level. Chrissy, welcome into tonight's Coaches Takeout Talk.
Isaac, thank you so much for having me this evening. And I just wanted to piggyback off of Dr. Zalesny and Dr. Ziggy. We have such a great opportunity as educators to keep that communication flowing for our student athletes, to help educate and keep those dialogues open and having open minds. I'm just so blessed to be able to be in this forum and be at this university where, like Ziggy said, we had such a great, candid conversation that it actually opened up a conversation that I had with one of my former teammates, and I'm learning things that I never knew about them. And I think that's really what this is all about, and that's what's so beautiful about the educational system. You learn so much. So thank you guys for having me.
That's really awesome, Coach. I've been encouraged as well just to see the candid conversations that people have been having, and I'm glad you were able to have some with some people from your past who may still be part of your present too, but learning more about those around us, I think, is one of the most crucial things that we can do in this day and age. And speaking of candid conversations, we'll keep this one going because we're looking forward to getting your thoughts and your opinions on what's going on with your team and with anything else that we might come across tonight. So again, as a reminder to our viewers, feel free to start sending your questions for Coach Buck Ziegler in the chat to me, and we'll get to those in a little bit here. But Coach, the first thing I wanted to run your way was your team's season was cut short when the coronavirus changed our world as we know it. I know your squad did not get very many games in this year, but from what you did see, what were some of the things you learned about your team over the first 14 games?
The number one thing, it's true with any team that we have here at CSUB. This team had grit. And when I watched them perform, and it was sad that our season got cut at the time that it did, because I saw some transitioning and some growing from our student athletes that I was getting very excited about. I was getting excited about the direction we were headed. And the one thing I loved about the WAC is all of the coaches knew that we would come to play and come to compete at the highest level. But really, it started to open up a lot of dialogue that these kids needed to have with one another. We had a lot of, and we're looking at Sam Martinez right there, a lot of kids that were transfers that were coming in, getting their feet wet. So we were having a lot of open dialogue that I was really excited about, a lot of difficult conversations that I was excited about. But it really showed me the grit of our program.
Yeah, absolutely. Grit has always been a way I would characterize your program. And I might ask you another question about that in a little bit. But first, I want to go back to, those early games of the season. And having been around you and your program and been watched from the outside, I've noticed that you have never shied away from putting together a tough schedule for your teams, especially in the early season as you head into conference play. And this season was no different. On opening weekend, you and your squad found yourselves back in Los Angeles at UCLA's tournament with a pair of games scheduled against the Bruins, who were the number 4 ranked team in the country at the start of the year. Your squad took in the opening game of the season. Your squad took some lumps and learned some lessons, but you really came back to play when you had a rematch against UCLA, and your team fell by a score of 8-4 while scoring the only runs of the tournament against UCLA. And like I said before, your team is definitely one that shows grit. Did you see grit in your team that night in particular?
I'm gonna share something very personal with everybody out there. At that time, my husband Brendan Ziegler we actually had to go down to UCLA at 1:30 p.m. on that Thursday, and we learned that he was diagnosed with cancer. And so the Lord puts you in places, and that's a lesson that we taught our kids, was the Lord is putting us in this place right now because it's where we needed to be in order for us to find that information out and still be in an area of competing at the highest level. Those kids competed in those 5 games harder than I've ever watched a team compete. And even in the first game, it was not about my family. It wasn't about what was going on. It was about our CSUB family and how we were going to come out and compete. So what I saw from them, and even in that 8-4 loss to UCLA, they believe that we should be on that stage. And that's really what I want to bring here to CSUB. We deserve to be on any stage at any level, and giving those girls that vision of seeing themselves compete at the highest level, so that when they do go to a regional, when they do get at that dream goal that we all put out there, they're ready to go. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do as educators. We're putting them on a level that when they go out into the workforce, they're ready to compete against anyone they go up against. So let's prepare them now. And the awesome place is on the battlefield, on the softball field. And I just loved, that 8-4 game, it should have been 8-5. There was an obstruction call at home that should have happened, but it didn't roll our way. But I loved it. Sam Martinez hit a 3-run home run. I believe that's the first ever home run in CSUB history off of a number 1 team in the nation. So I was happy about that.
Absolutely. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Sam went 4 for 4 that game, had a breakout game.
Yeah, what a team to have a breakout game against. And she's a great junior transfer who we're hoping to have for the next 2 to 3 years moving forward. And we're just a great way to open your career. How cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably a surreal feeling for her, and can't wait to see her back out on the field this next year. Speaking of next year, last month, the NCAA made the decision to award spring student athletes an additional year of eligibility. Are you expecting members from your team to utilize that extra year? I know you mentioned Sam a little bit. I know you got some seniors that could come back. And if so, how does that impact your squad?
Well, I think we've always been a squad that our kids will grow within our program. They develop over their 4 years, 2 to 4 years, depending on if they're transfers or not. So for us, we're going to have Sydney Coran come back. I've discussed with our athletes, they have that option, but we also want to help them lay out their educational career as well. So for a lot of them, it's going to be a case-by-case basis because of what is their vision of themselves. We want to be able to give them that opportunity because you have 4 great years, 2 great years, 1 great year to compete at this level and compete at a game that I just absolutely love. And I want the girls to have that ability to make those decisions because it ultimately is their career. It ultimately is their life. And we're trying to help formulate that for them and give them those opportunities. I think it can help our program immensely because we are a program that's transformational. It's not transitional. You're not just going to play softball for 4 years and leave. You're transforming your life. You're turning into a young, strong, educated woman. And that's something I'm extremely excited about, that we do have this opportunity here. And I believe we can use it to our advantage here at CSUB. Absolutely,
Coach. I love the way you described your program as transformational. And I wasn't planning to mention this tonight because it's a little bit of a spoiler, but you and I sat down with a few of the members from your 2016 team that won the WAC tournament and went to the NCAA regionals just a few days ago. And on this Monday, we're going to be having a video of that conversation coming out. And you talk about transformational, growing and developing young women into the area where they can make a path into a career beyond college and beyond softball. And we were sitting with 4 young women who are either in the medical healthcare field or are one of them's in the police force. Can you talk about those 4 in particular and just sort of elaborate on your philosophy of transformational program?
I think that stems from my career at UCLA. It was transformational for me, and it developed me into a very strong woman. And I believe it's something that I want to encourage our athletes to be. We get a lot of young women that come from, their first generation. And that's something that I love about CSUB. And so they've never viewed themselves as having a vision, having a dream, having what they could be. And so in that, we're helping them develop that and helping them see who they can be. Because for so much of their lives, they've been told who they can't. And that's part of being transformational. The 4 individuals that you just talked about, Sydney Raber, Jo Larios, Amber Mills, and who was the 4th? She's gonna get mad at me that
Julia Cavazos.
Julia. And in fact, I just had to write a recommendation letter for Julia heading into firefighting. To me, we're talking about essential workers in a time of need, and all 4 of them are stepping up to the call. And that's because of, from what I hear from them, the life lessons that they were taught here. I know Shelly Carlin is in the gallery, and I can't say enough for the mentorship that Shelly Carlin has given to me and my young women during this time, because that's all part of it. We want to see strong women, strong men. That's why I love listening to Coach Barnes, because he doesn't develop great basketball players. He develops great men. And that's something I love about CSUB.
Yeah, absolutely. When I heard about the things that some of those ladies are doing now, I was proud. So I can only imagine how proud you must be of them.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next question that I had for you. For those of you who don't know, Coach Buck was a national champion during her time at UCLA. Coach, one of your coaches was Lisa Fernandez, who is widely known as one of the greatest pitchers in softball history. But you yourself were more of a fielder, particular one year a starting shortstop. With that in mind, Coach, I have a philosophical question for you about softball. Which do you value more, a sound defense or a dominant pitching staff?
You got to have both, but pitchers win it. I mean, when you're looking at that 2016 performance, Amber Mills, Sydney Raber were 2 great pitchers for us. When I look back, it was kind of fun. ESPN has been highlighting and showcasing a lot of the old games. So I got to relive some of those. My 2002 game was on TV the other day. It was one of my last collegiate games, so I got to watch that. We had phenomenal pitchers in the circle. And then when I was coaching at Oregon State in 2006, we had a great pitcher. So as much as I love defense and love making those pitchers look really good, because they need us behind them, pitchers in the circle, it comes down to pitching.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that answer. I'm a little surprised. I thought you would say defense, but I appreciate your candidness.
I know. No, I'm being very candid. I'm being very open tonight. So, I'm all exposure. Here you go.
That's good. Inside access.
Excellent.
So, Coach, sticking to your college career, your head coach during that time, I believe, was the legendary Sue Enquist. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes.
As you transitioned into, assistant coaching over at Oregon State and then coming to CSUB with your first head gig, what were some of the values and the principles that you took away from her and what you learned from her to utilize in your coaching today?
Funny that you bring that up today. Today we had a coaches call of UCLA coaches, and players that had played at UCLA. Coach Enquist was on that call. Coach Enquist, to this day, helps all of us when we talk about, especially the young women that we're bringing, young men and women coming up through today. The challenges that they're facing are way different than the challenges I faced. So she's actually back down in the grassroots. She's coming up and seeing these kids come up through. So there's a lot of times I call her on the phone because she not only has been in my shoes, she has done things right and she's done things wrong. And we need to listen to those people that have done things right and done things wrong. And so I'm constantly in contact with her, Kelly Inouye, the head coach down there at UCLA. But then our goal, the whole purpose of this call was not just have this UCLA group. We need to extend and network, and how do we bring more people into this, and how do we spiderweb this out to the rest of our softball community? So that's what Coach Enquist is teaching me now. Is it's not just about what you know here currently. Open your mind and look elsewhere to get the best answers for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, sticking in terms of your coaching career, but maybe moving more to the personal side a little bit. Before you came to CSUB, you were an assistant coach at Oregon State for several years, and you helped that program to great success during your time there. But outside of work life, off the field, if there was time for that, I'm sure you were really busy. But what was your favorite part about living in Corvallis?
I loved the small town feel. It's one of the reasons I liked Bakersfield as well. We always talk about we're a big city with a small town feel. I loved the college town. It was, I mean, even to this day, it's like one of the number one in America of college towns. The sense of community. I love the sense of community. I loved hiking. I never thought I would like the rain. I enjoyed the rain more so than I would ever imagine. And those were the things that I really did enjoy, but those are, opposite the rain. We don't have as much rain here, but those are the same aspects and same qualities that I love about Bakersfield. It's the community aspect that was so cool about there. And then I would get, my husband would be mad at me if I didn't say meeting Brendan there as well. So that was kind of work-life balance, I guess. But that was, one of the best things about there as well is having the ability to meet my husband there and ultimately us transition here and start our family.
And Brendan was part of the strength and conditioning staff there at Oregon State, right?
Yes, he was. And in fact, it was my student athletes that told me I should go down and take a look at the new strength coach. And I'm like, girls, go away, leave me alone. And the bad part of being in a small town, everyone knew your business. And so we kept it low key for so long because we didn't want anyone to know and allow us that time to figure out, do I really like this guy, or who is he, and get to know each other. And that's something that Brendan and I love to talk about, is the girls that saw the connection between the two of us and how they kind of sparked that connection for us.
Well, that's really cool. And it definitely seems like it helped to have that work-life balance when some of your personal life was at work too. I bet that was pretty nice. So we'll be getting to our viewer questions in just a couple minutes here, and I've already seen several come through, so thank you to our viewers for submitting those. There's still a little bit more time if you want to send some in the chat to me. I'll be happy to ask them to Coach Buck here in a little bit. But before we get to that, Coach, your roster is starting to fill up with more and more local talent. I think about women like Samantha Martinez, who we mentioned before, Talia Nielsen, Allie Miller, and Jordan Hedden. I could keep going on and on. What are you seeing from Bakersfield softball during your recruiting, and how do you find the balance between local recruits and those from the outside?
I want to flip that. It's not so much what I'm seeing from the kids here in Bakersfield. I think we've always had great softball players that have come through this community. I think it's what they're seeing now from CSUB. I think they're seeing the opportunity now to play nationally. For so many years, players wanted to get out of Bakersfield. I need to in order for me to play at the highest level, I can't stay home. I've got to go somewhere else. They're seeing that opportunity can be right here in town. And I think that has been a little bit attributed to who we do play. They're not intimidated by, well, you're not beating those teams. Yeah, but we will be. I think that that vision that I've tried to create over these last couple of years of what we can be, not what we are, not what we were, what we're going to be, is really great. Allie Miller has been a kid, when you talk about transformation, she's a kid that's transforming a part of our program. I'm just seeing a picture of her right now. Talia Nielsen, a little bulldog spitfire kid that resonates with our program. So a little bit of both. They're the right kids for the program, and they're seeing what our program can give to them. Now, with the balance of going national, I wouldn't say nationally, but I'd say especially within the Western states, with a Sydney Karan, Hawaiian players, I think it's all about chemistry. It's all about bringing in the right kids with the right mentality to understand that they're here to go out and have a vision and have a goal of greatness. And it's a blending process, and that's really what I enjoy about it, is how we're going to blend the Bakersfield grit with the outside grit and bring it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a player like Sydney Karan, who, I don't know if a lot of people knew this, but entering this year, it only took her 3 years to become CSUB's all-time triples record for a career. And she was also one of the active leaders in the nation in that category too. So it's been great to see both the outside talent coming in here and also seeing that blend and mesh with the local recruits that you brought in as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that I do want to speak on, and didn't really have a chance to highlight it a lot last year because it was at the end of the season. But we were in the nation. We turned the most amount of double plays in the nation. So, talking about defense, I think those are some of the things that I'm proud of. We're hitting goals nationally that many people would not have thought that we could have done years ago. And we're doing that. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of those achievements. I'm proud of Sydney Karan, a kid who was from Hawaii that, her only opportunity to come to the mainland was 2 times a year. And it's a lot of money for girls on the island to come over and play on the mainland. And just being at the right place at the right time for Sid, and Sid will always attest to that. She spoke nationally for the NCAA a few weeks ago. I was so impressed by how she interviewed. And they had interviewed a woman or a girl at Oklahoma right prior to her. And just how Sydney spoke and how she carried herself was equally as good, if not better, than someone that is in front of those cameras nonstop. I was just so impressed by that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really great interview. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, make sure you check out CSUB Softball on Twitter. Their handle is @CSUB_softball. Give them a look. And that interview for Sydney Karan at the NCAA is still up there. So at this time, we'd like to open up to our viewers who have been sending their questions in. There's still a little bit more time, so you can get down at the bottom of the list because we've got a few to go through here. But send your questions to me in the Zoom chat. The first one is from Jordan Lovett, who asks, how does Coach feel about the new conference, the Big West, and the new competition compared to the WAC?
The greatest part is we're home, and what I mean by that is we're up and down California. We're not getting on airplanes. I think that's going to help competition. It's going to help with the student athlete experience, their ability to stay in class a little longer. So we're not leaving on a Thursday morning and missing all day Thursday to fly across the country to go to, play UMKC. The second thing it's done really a good job of is opening up the eyes of people in Southern California, saying there's another option for the Big West for me to go and play. And that's been a big contributor to a lot of the recruiting that we're doing. I look at it as a positive, and we've never shied away from the Big West teams. In fact, when we're playing those teams, we're typically losing by 1 run, if not beating them. So I'm excited to compete against all of those teams. A lot of them are friends and colleagues that I've coached with or coached against for years. And I just love the way that the conference does come together for the betterment of the sport. And I'm just ecstatic about us moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great time seeing those first games, renewing all those rivalries with those teams that CSUB used to have back in the D2 days, and getting some really good looks at them. The next question we have here in the chat is related to, the topic of the night, the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund. And the person asks, how important is the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund as it relates to recruiting and competing for high-level players?
First and foremost, moving into this conference, we will be at a scholarship level that puts us on an equal playing field. For many years, we were at a scholarship level that, Ziggy, I think back to the WAC championship, and he said, Chrissy, I can't believe what you guys just accomplished being the least funded program within the WAC. And I look at that as a testament to our players. I look at that as a testament to our staff and the job that we were able to do. We never cried about what we didn't have. The support of the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund is so important. It's giving student athletes opportunities, like I said before, that many of them didn't think that they could have. We're giving them that opportunity. We're giving them an opportunity to play against the best of the best, whether that's in the Big West Conference or that's down at UCLA, however that may be. You're giving kids an opportunity that many people told them they couldn't have. We've got some tremendous young women who are currently on our team. And I think of Candace Halliburton. Candace Halliburton has a child, and everyone told her how she was done playing softball the minute she had her child. And I told her about the ability of, not only are you going to be able to play at the highest level, you're going to raise one strong woman, because that's what I believe in. And it's giving her the opportunity to not only better herself, but to better her child as well. So it's not just about this generation, it's about generations to come. And like we talked about, the Bakersfield kids, the Bakersfield giving back to Bakersfield is really what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the next, this one is not so much a question as a comment and a little bit of backstory. This one comes from Shelly Carlin, who, for those of you who don't know, Shelly is a Bruin herself, and she's also a great supporter of UCLA softball, almost as much as she is of CSUB softball. She has been so generous to our department and the softball program over the years, not just financially, but also doing a great job of, as we see her pop up there, hey Shelly, how you doing? She's done a great job of building a culture where the student athletes can come to her and ask her questions, and she gives seminars with our female student athletes so often. We're so happy for everything she does. But her comment here is, when Samantha Martinez hit that homer, I was in the UCLA dugout. She was splitting time between the two dugouts. She says, I couldn't help myself, and I let out a big cheer, and the UCLA players all turned around and looked at her. She had no response. So, Shelly, we appreciate your support, and we apologize that we forced you to split your loyalties between the two blue and gold teams. Moving along to our next question. The question we have here is, can you speak to the process you have for your team in terms of day-to-day routine and blocking out external factors, which I think is especially important in today's day with all the coronavirus and COVID-19, everything that's going on. There's so much white noise out there.
It's hard. I mean, you're talking about, the way I look at it, we are with these young women 10% of the time, in all reality, when they're on the field. So what we're trying to do is, in that 10%, and because of the social media, because they're talking to their parents, their boyfriends, whatever it may be, their significant others, they've got all these other people coming around. It's all about, the field is the one place, the coach's office is the one, those are the places where you block all that out. We're here right now, and really getting them in the here and now. It is a process. It's not always easy. It's not always something that we're great at, but it's a constant process that we want to work with our athletes that and understand where they're currently at. We want them to know that the people around them are supportive of whatever issue they are going through. We had one student athlete that figured out she had a learning disability. How the heck do you figure that out? Oh, hey, and by the way, you got to go compete against the number one team in the nation. And sometimes it's not about what she's doing on the field. We'll help you through that, but let's just help you through, how are you studying? How are you looking at yourself in the mirror? It's a grind, but I think it's sitting down and just having those personal conversations as much as we can, so that they know at the end of the day, no matter what, we're on their side, and we don't want to add to that white noise. We want to help cancel it as much as we can. That's a really hard question, and it's one I wish I had the answer to. I wish I could just give them those, bows and put them on but it's a conversation we were having today as coaches, and that's a big part of why we're trying to get this network of coaches together, is so that we do bounce ideas off of each other, because we have white noise, and how do we block that out? So it is a process, but I think trying to build that trust with our student athletes is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about, coaching philosophy, and you already mentioned Kelly down at UCLA and Coach Enquist. So this next question actually asks, who are some softball coaches you look up to nationwide?
Oh my gosh. So I would go Patty Gasso over at Oklahoma. I think that she's tremendous. Today, another coach, she was an idol of mine growing up playing, and her name's Dot Richardson. Dot Richardson, I know I'm going to go on the UCLA bandwagon right now. I'm not meaning that, but I had an opportunity to listen to her speak today, and she's coaching down at Liberty University, and hearing how she communicates with her student athletes, to me, that's more what it's about. I want to win a national title. What coach doesn't want to win that? You wouldn't be in coaching if you didn't want to win. But I use that word transformation. The transformation of athletes is so huge, and we have such a great opportunity through sport just to developing people. So, whenever I get a chance to listen to coaches at a convention or just the other big part, like I said, networking, Carol Hutchins at Michigan, awesome woman to listen to. She's one of our forefront leaders for women coaches. That being said, I don't want to dismiss men. There's a lot of men coaches that are so influential in our game. Mike Andrea, I've listened to. Matt Lyle at Fresno State, he's a hitting coach. What is he doing? How is he connecting with his players? So to me, the more people I listen to, the more I love to gain knowledge. And the end all be all for me is John Wooden. I do a lot of reading of Coach Wooden and his philosophy and the pyramid of success, and what really is our own definition of success is what we're trying to preach to these kids.
Yeah, I suppose if there's a coach that you want to look up to, John Wooden is a pretty good one. The next, this is another not a question, but a comment actually comes from our director of swimming, Chris Hansen. He says, "Chrissy is my hero. I am so honored that we bounce ideas off each other. She is a team player." Thank you for adding that in, Coach Hansen. Coach, is there anything you'd like to respond to that?
I do. I love our athletic department. Chris Hansen is one that we do. We bounce ideas off of. I saw Marcia was on the call, Giovanna, volleyball. There's so many coaches. And I mentioned earlier, Coach Barnes and Coach Barnes' knowledge of just, he's been there, he's done that. He's challenging his young men every day. I think those are I do enjoy that aspect, and we're all working together. And Chris, I really do thank you for that comment. And some days you're my hero too. Some days, not always, Chris, but I love you. Thank you.
So moving on to our next question, it looks like somebody in the chat has asked, what do you see as a challenge going into the Big West?
Challenge is competition. The challenge is literally what's in between the kids' head. That's the challenge. That's coaching. Coaching is not, I mean, I feel like I'm on my platform right now about coaching, but I mean, whoever you go up against, you could be playing the worst team in the nation, but if you don't come to compete, it doesn't matter. So they're challenging because, you know, they might have a bigger stadium. They're challenging because they might have more tradition. They're challenging because of all of the other factors that you might look at that, oh man, that's, you know, how are we going to compete against that? But we get them right here. I think that helps in the challenge, because a challenge is anything that we put in front of us. And that's really how I look at challenges. Is the game doesn't change. It's 60 feet and you turn left. You're hitting a yellow ball, a round ball with a round bat. The game does not change. So I think it's teaching our athletes that that the only challenge they have is literally what they put in front of them.
So the next question we have here is, how has your approach to recruiting changed during COVID-19?
A lot of transfer portal, a lot of videos, and a lot of communication with coaches. Different than, we've always watched videos, but I think it's also networking with other coaches on, I mean, I was on the transfer portal. I have a friend back east. You know, I'm noticing this kid wants to come back to the West Coast. Coach, what do you know about her? I think that's been a big part of it. Zoom calls. I've never done so many Zoom calls before, but I think that's also opened up a line of communication that I think we were missing. We didn't do a lot of FaceTime before, but I think it's something that we can do. More so moving forward, because you get to actually have that a little bit better connection with the student athlete that you're recruiting. That's been the biggest change.
Okay, great. And it's actually funny that you mentioned the transfer portal, because that was the next question. It says, it seems like the transfer portal has really changed softball. What are your views on the transfer portal, and how does it fit in your recruiting strategy?
You're constantly looking at the transfer portal. I think that's one part, because you never know who's going to pop up on it. I think the reason why the transfer portal is becoming a little bit more, it's a new fad. Let's be honest. Kids love the new fads. I think it can help you and it can hurt you, definitely. But I think it's opening up more kids that we didn't even know would be looking to transfer. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've seen, that we can put our foot in the door now with kids that we didn't know we could. It's giving you that opportunity. But I think also with the explosion of our sport, kids are looking to get their name in and make an impact wherever they want to play. So the explosion of our sport has helped with that transfer portal going crazy. And you're just checking it all the time.
And so the last thing that we have here is actually another comment. It's from Jordan Lovett. He says, I love how the softball field has progressed a lot during your time here. And Coach, I know that not everybody may know this, but you've been here almost 10 years. And in that time, you've seen renovations to the field itself, to the dugouts, to a new fence, to a new press box, to new fences, the backstop. Can you talk about sort of where you have seen the facility go, and where you kind of, what's the next step on the facility?
It's the next step on the facility is, what I would love to see is having some kind of locker room out there for our student athletes. You know, when Shelly and I talked, I think in 2016, she had asked me, Chrissy, what's your vision? And when I first came here in 2011, I remember walking out to the field, and it was, as one of my friends said, well, it's a dirt pile. If anyone can play in a dirt pile, it's you. And I didn't know how to take that at first. I kind of tilted my head like, were you slamming me or were you giving me a compliment? I took it as a compliment, because that's how I want to look at life. But I had a vision at that point. And when I talk about with our girls, helping them establish a vision of who they can be, what they can do, the field is a perfect example of the vision. We wanted a place where our student athletes felt that they were home. These 4 years, you are leaving and you're coming to a place that is weird and different because you're away from home. So why not make it as comfortable as we can? So when we had the addition of the backstop, the dugouts, we just did it piece by piece by piece. And as anybody knows, when you build a house, you got to have foundation. So we started with the infield. That was our first foundation. Then we did the backstop and the press box. We did the dugouts, just slowly, piece by piece, putting that whole facility together. I am so proud of that because a lot of that has got to do with my family and their efforts, and the help of Shelly Carlin and Karen and Ziggy and everyone, Cindy Goodman. Everyone's bought into the vision that I said we could do for CSUB. And now the next step is doing it physically on the field. But we're turning out such great women that I also look at that their visions of who I think they could be, and they're kicking butt in their real world. So we're missing one component. I think we've got the field is going well. We've got the student athletes, how they're progressing through the program and what they are now at the end. Now we need to get it done on the field and getting the win-loss column the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you commenting about your family. I don't know how many times I've been out at the softball field and seen Mr. Buck or even your mom down on their hands and knees, working on the field themselves. And I'm sure that family atmosphere leaks itself into your student athletes as well. And while we're on the topic of family, if you don't mind, I know a lot of people know about your husband, Brendan, who is our director of sport performance here at CSUB. Many know his story of how he battled and survived cancer, and some may even know that he's currently fighting again, as you mentioned it earlier. Would you be willing to give sort of an update on how he's doing?
He's doing phenomenal. He's doing great. I would say this second round has kicked me harder than it's kicked him. He's a warrior, man. I've never met somebody like him, and how we, the one thing I try to teach the girls, and we're not perfect. We're not a perfect married couple. No one's perfect, but how you stick together during times of a challenge. And I think he has been a big inspiration for me of, you get up in the morning and you got a job to do and you go out and do your job. And when you come home, you get loving from your family. He's doing, he finished his chemo. He finished his radiation. He stayed with a friend of mine down in LA. And she goes, Bucky, he makes me feel bad because he's out in the garage and he's working out. But he had a vision for himself. He knew if he lost weight, he knew if he didn't eat, it would really, really affect him. And so he just is somebody I'm blessed to have in my life. And I don't ever really speak this candidly about him because that's our personal life. And I try to do that, but he's an amazing guy. And anyone that comes in contact with him is immediately inspired. And I get to have that every day. Now, what you guys don't see is me being the mean wife some days, but he's a tremendous guy and just has done wonders at CSUB for all of our coaches. Chris, I think Chris Hansen, myself, and volleyball were the only three, and men's basketball, only 4 teams that used Brendan when he first got here. Now every coach is asking, like, when do we get Zoom calls and when can we get you working with the athletes? And I have to tell him, you need to pump the brakes and let your 3 weeks of after chemo kind of just sit in, because he's ready to get back at it as soon as he can. So I'm just very lucky to be married to such a great, wonderful human being.
Yeah, we're so glad to hear that he's doing well. As a coworker of Brendan's, I've seen firsthand the impact he's had on so many of the lives of our student athletes. I'm so glad to hear he's doing well. And for those of you who don't know, at our annual Rowdy's Award Show, one of the categories is the Weight Room Warrior Award. And I can't think of any other fitting person than Brendan to be the one to present that every year. And so thanks for that update, Coach. We're running a little low here on time, but one more question for you before we head out. As you head into the 2021 season, how do you feel about the state of your team? Specifically, where are some areas you feel like you have great depth, and where are some areas you're looking to grow?
Well, we're looking to grow. You asked me the question earlier in the circle. We need to grow in the circle when we need to have that battery mate behind the plate. We're losing Kara Wiseman as a catcher. She was a senior catcher for us. That's a hole that's going to need to be filled, and one that we're looking to make sure that we fit the right person into that position. But I like where these kids are. I think the one thing I saw during our Zoom meetings, and the one thing we had them listen to some of our alumni talk, it brought up in them again that vision of who they can be. And we're going to take our lumps, and that's okay. If I'm not a walking example of, you're going to get kicked in the stomach in life, you're going to get kicked in the stomach and you're going to lose some games. How do you respond? I think these kids are going to respond really well. I'm excited about Sydney Coran coming back. That was big, because if there was one kid who was devastated that day when we got the news, Sydney was probably the most devastated that day. And saying, Coach, you tell us all the time, you got to play the game like it's your last. That last game was literally my last. And having the NCAA grant those the ability to having the next year was big. So again, I think we're a resilient bunch. I think we're going to come back. We can't wait to get on the field, whatever that looks like, whenever that looks like. We're patient and we're team players. And as soon as Ziggy and the rest of administration gives us the go ahead, our kids are ready to get back in full action.
Coach, we can't wait for that to happen. I personally always look forward to softball season every year. I think I've been through about 7 softball seasons with you and looking forward to many more to come. But it looks like we're running out of time here. So once again, we would like to thank our generous sponsor of tonight's Coaches Takeout Talk, Sorella Italian Restaurant. Local businesses like Sorella's are so important to our community and our economy. We're so glad that local guidance has started to allow restaurants like Sorella's to begin reopening their doors. We will be back next Thursday, June 11th, for our next Coaches Takeout Talk featuring Sebastian Vecchio, head coach of the Roadrunner women's soccer team. Be on the lookout, CSUB Athletics on all social media platforms for what restaurant will be our partner for that night. And we'll be sending you all out to hopefully help us grow the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund, because these restaurants have been so helpful to us, allowing us to take a portion of their proceeds and give it back to student-athlete scholarships. And so we're very grateful to them. It is our hope and mission that these stories these coaches are telling and the impact that they are making would inspire you to consider donating to the Roadrunner Scholarship Fund. For more information, please visit gorunners.com/give. Have a great night, everybody. Go Runner.